Welcome to the next episode of Expert Showcase. Today on Expert Showcase, we have Haris Reis. I got it right, Haris. He's on the back and he's not going to say anything yet, but we've been having fun with that. He's a great guy. I'm terrible with names. He's going to be great for you. He's going to tell you today how a book changed everything for him and how a book can change everything for you. Hey, Haris, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. How about you, Chris?
Good. Now that I got through the whole name thing, and for those of you in the pre-show prep, I pity this guy because I'm just terrible with names, and it should be easy, Haris, but it is what it is. So if I say it right the whole time, I'll get a gold star. The over/under for me mispronouncing Haris's name, if you're taking a poll, is 2. So if you go 1, you get the under. If you go 3, you get the over. You have to write us in a list who wins the bet in the end. Oh, so Haris, you've got the sunshine in the background. You're in California today, if I understand things right. Just preparing for a conference. Oh, look at the pool, man. You're making me jealous. I'm sitting here sweltering in 95-degree heat back in Pennsylvania, and you've got the pool out there. So got to make sure you dive in. Take a lap or two for me after you get done having fun on stage. Sound good?
Absolutely. I definitely will for you guys.
Excellent. Well, once again, we're honored to have you on the show today. In the second segment, we're going to talk about the main core problem of how a book changed everything for you and how it can change everything for other people. In this first part of our show, we go through a hero's journey. For those of you new to the show who don't know what a hero's journey is, the short version is everybody goes through challenges in their lives. Some worse than others, some better than others. But there's always that seminal moment, that point where you might have been a little successful, maybe moderately or highly successful. You get down to a certain point and it changes everything. And then you go through some struggles and you come back on the other side. And that's what we like to call a hero's journey. And Haris, I'd like to find out about your hero's journey. Why don't you tell us a little bit about, where you started, and let's just kind of take a walk down memory lane and go through it.
Absolutely. Well, first off, I want to say thank you for having me on the show. I'm honored to be on. So I actually got started. I was born in Germany, raised in Bosnia, came over to America when I was about 7. Just a quick reference that I'm from Bosnia. That's where you get the name Haris, not Harris. And then, so I was a typical student in high school, and I was just thinking, hey, there's this conference, might as well go to it. I can get out of class for a day, right? And there's a speaker called Layman Hicks. He's actually one of the top youth speakers in the nation now, but I didn't know it at the time. I just went to get out of algebra. So I went, and he turned out to be absolutely amazing. As a top youth speaker, you would think he would be pretty good. And he inspired me. But unfortunately, after that, I didn't do much with it. He inspired me, but I didn't do a whole lot. I went on to college. I was set to get my 3 degrees. I believe they were computer science, management information systems, and business. No clue what I would have done with any of those. But I got a job at Union Pacific. It's a Fortune 500 company, I believe. It was a big corporate company. It's the dream internship. And I got there, and I just saw it's a lot of people sitting in cubicles. And Chris, I don't know about you, this to me beats a cubicle any day.
Yeah, it definitely does. It's interesting. It's to take a quick digression. You mentioned being in cubicles. I started off life as an actor and entertainer, and somewhere along the line took a little detour into information technology. I say little detour. It was 15 years as part of corporate America, Fortune 500 company. And the only reason I loved to stay in it was the creativity. It's one of the reasons one of the companies I own does websites for speakers and authors, and one of the companies I own does videos for speakers and authors, because there is a piece of that technology I love. But the fact of the matter is that we can sit here, and you can be in California right next to a pool. I can be here in Pennsylvania, figuring out where I'm going to go jump in a pool after this is all done, and not have to worry about living in a cubicle is much better than getting tied up in a cubicle, and especially being on stage, which we'll talk about later, because I know you're on stage this weekend, and that's one of the things you and I have in common is we love to be on stage and be in front of people. Much better experience than sitting in the cubicle. So you're in a cubicle.
Absolutely.
You realize that, hey, I'd rather be in a pool than a cubicle. They kind of sound a little bit alike, but they're nothing alike.
Right. Well, one thing I want to say is there's nothing wrong with being in a cubicle. It just wasn't for me. I respect a lot of people who are, but it just really wasn't for me. And I realized that there was a bigger calling, and I started going to more. I wanted to go to seminars and just learn. And right when I was thinking about that, I was sitting in class. It was a computer science class, and I had two classes back to back. There was about a 15-minute window in between. So within 30 minutes of my first class ending, I got an email saying Kevin Harrington. I don't know if that name sounds familiar, but he's from Shark Tank. He was on season one, owns As Seen on TV, sold $4 or $5 billion worth of products. A genius of a guy. I saw he was going to be speaking at the next Collegiate Entrepreneurs Organization event my school held. I'm like, wow, I need to get to that, but I need to get to him before that because I want to moderate for the guy, and I want to break history and moderate him into the Hall of Fame, which no student has ever done. And even better than that, I've never been a part of this organization at all. So it's kind of a big goal here, and I figured I need to get around him. So I just started doing a typical Google search, where he's going to go, where is he going to be, and I found out he's actually going to be right here in this city, San Diego, about a year and a half ago. And within that 15-minute time frame of my class ending to my next class starting, I bought my hotel, I bought my flight, and it was for that weekend. And I got home, packed my bags, came all the way out to California, and there were 6 people in the room at this event. I'm like, wow, not exactly what I was expecting. And Kevin didn't even make it. So I'm like, wow, I came all this way to meet this guy that I'm going to moderate for, and I still had that vision that I was going to moderate for him at CEO and induct him into the Hall of Fame, and nothing. And then there was this lady called Laurel Langmeyer. She's from Nebraska, which is where I live now in Omaha, Nebraska, and she's a millionaire maker, and she talked me into coming to one of her workshops, and it was way more money than I had even in my bank account. And I said, sure, why not? So I came back out a month later, and I did her program, and Kevin was actually there at that event. Now, the cool thing is I ended up getting scholarship for that event, just because I was the only person in that little group of people, 7 people, 6 people in that room. I was the only one who flew all the way from Omaha, Nebraska, to this event. Most people was just in their backyard. They started taking notice. And then when I signed up for the event, they decided to scholarship me. I didn't know that until about 2 weeks later, but it was still great that they did that. And I got scholarship. And I just kept being around this guy, and I just kept coming up everywhere he went. And, at first he didn't acknowledge me, second time didn't acknowledge me, but the more you're around him, the more, he didn't really have an option. I just kept coming back, and then I had his friends telling him about me, so wherever this guy was going, he was being told about me, which was great. And to wrap up that quick story, I just kept coming around him, and then I was influenced to write a book.
Interesting. Okay. So, and I paused for a second. It's interesting because when I listen to the story so far, because I know there's definitely going to be more. And when I listen to the story so far, one of the things that I pick out that from working with a lot of people that need to change their mindset, you're the mindset expert. We were talking more before about finding your 0 point, my next book, and so we both work in similar areas with people, on how to change their mind. The one thing that I picked up from that story that a lot of negative people would pick up on was, well, he had these chances. He had this. He got this scholarship. And you can see the look on my face. He got this scholarship, and he did this, and he did that. And the reason I bring it up is because if you're one of those people who are being judgmental right now, I used to be very judgmental, and that's how I used to think and would have thought. If you're one of those people who that's the first thought that you thought of saying that he got these opportunities, I want you to stop right now and I want you to change your thought pattern. Because the reason that Horace, I almost did it, the counter almost went up to 1. The reason Horace got the opportunities is because he took action, number 1, and number 2, he was in the right area for his blueprint for what he was meant to do. And this is key, and this is the point I'm taking from your story. You took action, point number 1. Point number 2, this is what you were meant to do, and this was your 0 point, this was in your DNA, so things started to happen for you. And the reason I bring it up that way, and I'm going to ask you a quick question in a second about it,
Sure.
Horace, is people, you and I have probably talked to some of the same people that complain about, well, I've done this, I've taken action, I've done all this, and it hasn't worked
Yeah.
out for me. What I tell people is it's because you're not in the right area. Let's figure out what area you should be in, and then put that action taking to use and go make it happen. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so one quick point about that story as well before I get into that was a year later, when that event actually happened, I moderated for Kevin in front of 1,500 other college kids. That book that I wrote won me an award. I actually got runner-up for Entrepreneur of the Year against the 1,500 other kids there. And this event's ranked by Forbes. It's the largest collegiate entrepreneurial event in the nation. Huge honor. And actually, my vision came true just because I took action. So the question, what I actually think about that is I think a little bit differently just because it's hard to put it in words exactly, but the way I approached it was I had a vision, no matter what, I'm going to get there. And the negative people aren't necessarily negative. They were just around the wrong group of people. There's a quote by one of my good friends called Greg Reed. He said that you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time around. If you spend the most time around grumpy, angry people, what are you going to turn into? Probably grumpy and angry. If you hang around multimillionaires and billionaires who are always happy and all you see is them happy living the life of their dreams, if they want to go swim in a pool tomorrow, they can go swim. If they want to go jump out of a plane tomorrow, they can. They can do anything they want. And that's the life that you start having. Literally, that's the life I am having now. Being able to do anything I want at any time just because I wanted to associate myself with these 5 people. That event with 6 or 7 people that I went to, I could have easily said, wow, this event is terrible. I should just leave. Now the thing is, I approached it differently just because of the people that are around me. And I saw 6 or 7 people that I could get to know. And now that it's smaller, I can get a lot deeper with them. I focus on depth, not exactly width. So I want to go deeper with these people, and now I get to because there's only 7. We had a whole day just to talk to 7 people instead of most, events have hundreds of people. You can't really get too deep with everyone. So I got really deep with all of them, and I got deep with a person who ended up scholarshiping, which I didn't even know she worked for the company. I just wanted to get to know everyone because these were the people I wanted to associate with. So it all just depends on how you think and how you enter situations.
Yeah, you're exactly right. You're exactly right from the standpoint that your mindset does control. I'll say almost everything. I mean, there is a point where, and this is what's great about our industry is everybody can have a little bit of a different views. Your mindset does control almost everything. In the end, there comes a point where you were designed for a certain thing, and the beautiful part is that once you find that, then things become a whole lot easier. If you're going in the wrong direction, things are usually a challenge, and usually there's signals pointing you in the right direction. So you put yourself around the right people to get in the right direction. So I commend you also because most people wouldn't have taken it that way. Most people would have walked in and said, "Oh, geez, you're only 6 people, and Kevin didn't show up. I spent the last dollar I had in my bank account. The guy I really wanted to see didn't show up. What the heck am I going to do?" And they would have turned it into a negative, but you turned it into a positive. So it's definitely kudos to you for doing that, and you're seeing the fruits of your labor today.
Absolutely, and I agree with you completely. And the 5 people you hang around that are being happy, I'm assuming that you think that that's a great lifestyle, and that's why you're around them because they're doing things that make you happy. Otherwise, you wouldn't be around them.
Right, exactly. So the
Completely
interesting
agree.
so the so the interesting thing here is that from a hero's journey perspective, I didn't hear a lot of negative things. I heard you kind of made some decisions. You realized that it wasn't for you, and you realized something had to change. Is that kind of sum it up and then you went out and took the action to make this change? Is that kind of what I heard?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there weren't a whole lot of excuses. I didn't really have money for a plane ticket. I found a way around it. That could have been an easy excuse. I don't focus on excuses. I go by one quote that Laurel taught me, actually. It was at that event with 6 people. It was say yes and figure the rest out. I said, I'm going to be at this event. The rest is going to figure itself out. And it always does. It hasn't failed me yet.
Yeah, exactly. It's so interesting because that's kind of an old line in business for people who are successful. The answer when a client or a customer says, "Can you do this?" The first answer is always yes. and then and then you sweat to figure out how to do it. It's kind of like there's a show on television called Fast and Loud with these car mechanics from down in Texas, and there's an infamous thing where he goes to Sonic to try and secure his first corporate client, and they pretty much say, "Can you do it?" And he says, "Yes." And then they do the whole behind the scenes shot, and he's like, "I'm sweating. I don't know how we're gonna do this, all this other stuff, but hey, but then you have to deliver. It's kind of like,
Yeah.
and that's the thing. You can't just say yes to, if somebody said, if I come to Horace, see, I almost did it again. I'm really trying to get the people with the over to win. But it's like I can't come to Horace and say, "Horace, build me a space shuttle," and Horace, is not going to say, "Yeah, I can," "Yeah, I can do that." I mean, there is a limit to that, and what I'm trying to say, you as a viewer, don't lie to people and go completely overboard, but
Yeah.
stretch yourself out of your comfort zone, and your initial reaction should always be yes, and then figure out how to make it happen, because it's amazing what you can figure out how to make happen once you say yes to something, right, Horace?
Oh, absolutely. And then your network is your net worth. So the more time you spend investing in yourself, the bigger your network gets. So the more yeses you can say. And like you said, I completely agree with you. I would never lie to someone. If someone comes to me and says, "Go build me a spaceship," uh, that'd be a tough one. But I know a guy named Peter Diamandis who's building the X Prize, who's actually building a spaceship. I wouldn't necessarily do it. I would recommend it to him. But there's always a way for something. But I completely agree with you 110% on that, where I wouldn't
Excellent.
go overboard with it.
Well, thank you. What we're going to do is we're going to wrap up the Hero's Journey segment. From watching other episodes, you've heard, I'll say, people who've had less challenges, people who've had more challenges than Horace. The thing I want everybody to get, and the point of Horace's story, and the point of this whole thing, is that it doesn't have to get really bad. If it's gotten really bad for you, that's okay. There's people like Horace, there's people like myself, there's other people out there that can help you. But if you do things before it gets bad and before you have that super massive negative hero's journey, it's a much better life. Wouldn't you agree, Horace?
Absolutely, 100%.
Excellent. So we're going to take a very, very quick break. I want everybody to stick around or maybe grab some water, depending on where you're at. Don't go to the pool, though, because if you go to the pool, you're going to miss the second piece, and it's bad. You got to stick around and watch the second piece, because in the second piece, in the experts focus segment of our show, we're going to talk about how a book changed everything. How a book changed everything for Horace, and how a book can change everything to you. So give us a minute, and we'll be right back. And we're back on the experts focus portion of Experts Showcase. I think there's too many experts in there. Maybe I'll have to change the names of some of these, but we'll talk about that later. Oh, in the end, we've got Haris Reis on the line with us today, all the way from sunny California with the pool in the background. And for those of you tracking the over-under, it's still at 0. If you have no clue what I'm talking about, you have to watch the first part of the episode. Links are in the description or somewhere, or just rewind depending on how you're watching this. You have to watch and see what that's all about. In the Experts Focus segment of our show, we're going to focus in on how a book changed everything. A book changed everything for Horace, and a book can change everything for you. So, Horace, why don't you give us a quick 30 to 60-second overview of this core problem of a book changed everything, and what we're going to talk about in this segment?
Yeah, sure. So I was around Laura Langmeyer, as I mentioned in the first part, and I was inspired to write a book. And I've been fortunate enough to be around all these very successful entrepreneurs, such as Kevin Harrington, Laura Langmeyer, Jack Canfield, Pat Mesiti, Greg Reed, and all these. Les Brown, the top motivational speaker in the world. And I've been blessed to be around these people. So I figured, why not write a book about how these guys think? The way they approach problems and issues was just such a different way than everyone else. So I wrote a book about how they approach problems, and better yet, how people can apply it to their own lives so they can become successful.
Wow, that is awesome, and it's interesting you bring up Les Brown. I partner with him on empowerment mentoring, so I'm very familiar with Les. And it's interesting you mentioned Jack Canfield, because I know his speaking coach James Malinchek from ABC's Secret Millionaire.
Yep.
So it's kind of it's interesting. Ends up
Small
becoming
world.
I was gonna say it ends up becoming a very small world. Today we're bi-coastal, literally probably what 3,000 miles apart, and end up figuring
Yeah,
out after talking for an hour that we know some of the same people. So it's awesome.
yeah.
Enough about all that. Let's jump right in. We're gonna go over three keys to success. One is listen to your whisper. Two is say yes and figure out how. And three is seek counsel and not opinion. So I'm really intrigued on getting into this stuff. Let's talk about your first time. Let's talk about your first point. Listen to your whisper. What's that all about?
The whisper. Do you ever? Can I ask you a question here, Chris? Do you ever have that little voice inside of your head?
Geez, I got 50 voices inside of my head. I just got to, no, yeah, I won't take it down. I won't derail us, but yep, I get that all the time.
So, Chris, that's your whisper. You know, when you when you're debating something and that little voice inside is saying, do this, do that. I also reference you have the little angel on one shoulder and the devil on the other, the good and the bad. So you have multiple voices, but always listen to those whispers, because those whispers will ultimately tell you what's right and what's wrong. For one instance, following my whisper, I was going to go on my first web show, international web show. 70,000 people were about to view it. It was my first one ever. I didn't have a speaking gig at that point. It was literally my first talk ever. And 70,000 people, that's not a lot. That's not a little bit of people. That's a lot of people. So my whisper just told me, call Glenn Morshower. He's a famous actor, Transformers 1, 2, and 3, and a bunch of other shows. And I picked up the phone and called him. Didn't know if he'd remember me. I was at an event with him 3 months ago. But my whisper told me to pick it up and call him. Guess where he was? Driving from California all the way to Dallas, because he has another house there, and just sitting there with his wife. And he had his phone. And he said, I have nothing but time. What's going on?
That's always
Follow
an
your
awesome
whisper.
thing to hear.
So it's just that little whisper. You always listen to it, and I always write down my whispers too. If there are little ideas, no matter where I am, I have a notepad on my iPhone. I have notebooks that I carry. I always write things down.
Yeah, and that is awesome, and it's once again it's about taking action, and we talked about this in the first segment. That's the biggest. I can tell this is going to be a point I'm going to get back to again and again and again in this episode with you. Is that you take action. You don't sit back and wonder. You don't sit back and analyze too much. It's okay. Let's go do this. So that is awesome. Now I'm sure, and I shouldn't assume, but from listening to my whisper and having it be wrong at some points, I'm sure you've listened to it and there's been, I'm not going to necessarily say wrong, but there was
Right.
challenges you had to go through, or it didn't work out
Absolutely.
exactly as. Is there any, can you give an example of a time where it might not have worked out
Sure.
exactly like you had thought it would, and what did you do about it?
Can I reference that first, the first part of the show where I went to that event? My whisper told me to go to the event, and I got to that event, and there were 6 people. My whisper told me wrong. One quote by Steve Jobs was, "You can't always connect the dots looking forward, but you can always connect them looking back." So when I was at that event, I had no idea what was going on. I listened to my whisper. I still today trust my whisper, but I was like, really, 6 people, and the guy I'm here to see is not here. Great, you know. And my whisper just told me to be there. And looking back, okay, so that got me in that room with Laurel and one of her executives who scholarshiped me for an event where I got to meet Kevin, and a lot of people kept telling Kevin about me. And then Kevin, by the time I was actually going to talk to him, he knew all about me. So it's easy to connect the dots looking back.
Exactly, and I think the point that I get from what you had just said was moreover that you listened to your whisper, you took action, and when you did, it didn't appear on the surface to turn out, but you kept a positive attitude about it, and you figured out how to turn it into a positive, and over time, it did turn into a positive, and listening to your whisper was the right thing to do, right?
Absolutely.
Hey Harris, it's awesome that we're talking about listening to your whisper and saying yes and then figuring out how. As we were talking about this a little bit, you mentioned at one point listening to your whisper and an MMA experience. Why don't you tell us a little
Yeah.
bit more? Tell us a little bit more about that, because that is really interesting.
Sure. So one of my whispers was I like watching UFC. I like the MMA. One of the whispers was find an MMA gym near you. How do you explain that one, right? So I took the second motto, where say yes and figure it out. So I just did a quick Google search. I found that a Premier Combat Center is 5 minutes down the street from me. I'm like, great. It was a Sunday afternoon. I walk into the gym, and there's this like big, strong, muscular dude with cauliflower ear. I know now he's an 8-time UFC veteran, Ryan Jensen. He was a great UFC star. And I just walk in. I'm like, hey, I want to start. He's like, okay, come tomorrow. Oh, okay, bye. So he's like, I gave this kid 2 weeks. That's pretty much it. I don't think it'll last too much longer. And I come in the first week, and I sparred with one of our like biggest, strongest guys there. And then 2 weeks after that, I came out to San Diego again, and I sparred with a UFC Hall of Famer, Chris Lieben. So I'm like, if I can handle these two, I can handle everything. And tying it all back was, sometimes in life and in business, you get knocked down. MMA, you physically get knocked down and you have to come back up. Sometimes you do as well as in business and life, but the point is you always have to come back up, no matter how hard, no matter how long it's going to take you. Just come back up.
Exactly.
It's going to be worth it.
Exactly. So I got to ask you, did you last longer than 2 weeks?
I'm still doing it today. It's been about 9 months.
Excellent. And so when you say you're still doing it today, you're training. Are you training in MMA? Or are you looking to do some MMA fights? What exactly?
Yeah.
What's kind of now that you've said yes and you've figured out how, and you're moving down the path? What is your goal for what you're doing in that particular space?
Sure. So originally I just wanted to train, and then I did boxing, then I did kickboxing, then a little bit of jiu-jitsu, and then the MMA entire game. The more you do it, the more you get that itch to go in there. I don't plan on being in there for a while. I don't plan on doing more than 1 or 2 fights, but I think I have to get in there at least once or twice. And like at the beginning, I did mention that I am Bosnian, coming with a Bosnian flag draped over my back. I don't know. It's one of those whispers. I really can't explain them. This is a live whisper. I can't explain it. It's just it's telling me to do it. So
come on, dude. Let's be honest. Here's the real thing. You just want to train to be good enough to get in the ring with Ronda Rousey for like a round and.
Okay, you caught me. You caught me. You caught
me. I mean, I'm a single guy. I'm divorced. Hey Rhonda, I'll be happy to get beaten up by you any day. Come on the show. Let's, I'll get in the ring. I'll get in the ring with you. Maybe some of the times maybe some of the knowledge I had from knowing the Afa and Sika, the Wild Samoans, and partying with their kids. Maybe some of that will help rub off. But it's kind of like the new Entourage movie where the guy's like, if I can last 30 seconds, I'll take you out on a proper date. It's just like, hey, put me in a headlock for 30 seconds as long as I stay awake.
Yeah, that counts, right? Yeah, no, you called my bluff. You caught me.
But the interesting thing, and back on topic, and the point is, it's kind of, you get the whisper, you say yes, you figure out how, and you don't really know where it's going to lead. But once you get there, it might lead somewhere good. It might lead somewhere challenging. It might lead somewhere else. You don't really know where it's going to lead. But if you're trusting your voice and you're trusting your gut, that your voice and inside and your brain is always there to help protect you. So it's steering. It should always be steering you in the right direction.
Absolutely.
I was gonna say something else, but I realized it's really not appropriate. So we're gonna move on from me sticking my foot in my mouth. That was, for those of you counting, that's the first time. The over under on that's 5 at this point. And you who are taking the over on that one. So we're gonna start bets at the beginning of all these episodes. It'll make them more fun. So back to the important thing, which is you. First you listen to whisper, then you say yes and figured out how. Now you're talking about seeking counsel and not opinion. And this one's interesting to me because, you're making a distinction between counsel and opinion. Tell us a little bit about that and also where and how you make that distinction.
Sure. So if I could just kind of go back a little bit and say where I heard that first. And then what a difference it made in my life. It absolutely changed it, and I hope I changed someone's life on this that's viewing the show. But basically, there's a guy named Greg Reed. He's a filmmaker, speaker. He's just one of the coolest guys I know. He's a great mentor to many. One of my mentors. Very, very smart guy, and he's just a great person to be around. And Whisper said to send him a message on LinkedIn, I think, and I sent him a message. I got a reply, and then I said go to his event, and I went to his event. And at his event called Secret Knock, I was just sitting in the crowd, and he said, one of the things that changed my life is to seek counsel and not opinion. The difference is, if you want to write a book, the chef that's cooking your meals at a restaurant he says, oh, you can't write that book, or your mom or your dad or your siblings, oh, you're not going to write that book, your friends, you can't write. Versus getting counsel, where I go to Mark Victor Hansen, who sold over $2 billion worth of books, hey, how do I write a book? Haris, here's the first 10 things you need to do before you write a book.
Interesting. So really what you're saying is, when you're talking about counsel, you're talking about somebody with an informed opinion, and I'll say informed opinion, meaning somebody who's been there, right? Somebody who's done that,
Yeah.
somebody who can, who, if they have an opinion about what you should do, at least it comes with some reasoning behind it, and in an area that will help push you forward, versus somebody with merely an opinion, who may or may not be informed. And let's face it, we're all human beings, and no matter how much we say we love each other, inside we're always looking out for what's best for, kind of what's best for us. And that goes down the whole path of, your mom might love you, but when she tells you not to write the book, it's because she doesn't want to see you change, because she's afraid of what you writing a book is going to mean. And I know some people can't relate to that, but we can. Let's put it this way: Haris is Horace. There's one. We got one on the.
One.
So remember, the over/under is 2. So you unders are still winning at this point, but I don't know. It might be a push. So, but Horace is the mindset expert. I deal with people with finding their 0 point. Fact of the matter is that the subconscious, the psychology, and everything, it's way too deep for us to get into here today. And concepts that might not make sense, like your mom telling you not to write a book, it's because she's afraid to change, might not make sense. If you want to learn more about it, get in contact with Horace, get in contact with me, and we can take you deeper on that and tell you why that actually does make sense. So anyway, back to the main topic. So that's really the difference between counsel and opinion. Counsel's informed, opinion is just that, opinion, right?
Absolutely. And once you start seeking counsel, not opinion, your life will change.
Interesting. So what happens when you seek counsel and counsel tells you not to do it?
Then you're crossing a different line, because are you saying if your whisperer says one thing and your counsel says another? Or in general, you're saying if counsel says don't do something?
Well, if your whisperer says write a book, and then you talk to Mark Victor Hansen, and Mark Victor Hansen looks at you and says don't write a book, what do you do then?
Yeah, so typically those types of people that are very successful, and they see someone who wants to succeed, they're not telling you that because they don't want you to succeed. They're not just gonna say, hey Chris, don't write that book. He's probably gonna say, the first step is probably not writing a book for you would be the best. Let's get you on some radio shows. Let's get you in some magazines, and then once we build up a little bit of a name, we'll write that book. I would be very surprised if Greg Reed or one of my really good friends and mentors, Nick Nanton, would ever tell me, no, don't do it. They always tell you, hey, I wouldn't recommend this. I'll try these things first, and then that.
Right, and that's such a great point to bring out. It's kind of funny. Once again, it's a small world. While I have not taken Nick up on any of his offers and the things, I do subscribe and do know who Nick is, and with his PR agency and the whole 9 yards. So just said, man, it ends up being a really small world. It's interesting. I think that's one of the keys. So. And I'm pausing for a second because I want to drive this point home with people. You might still have somebody with counsel tell you not to do something, but you have to listen to it in the way that they're telling you. It's not that they say don't do it forever. I think this is what you're saying. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Counsel and informed people usually don't say don't do it, quote unquote, forever. They say it might not be right for you now, here's the way you can get to it being right in the future. Is that a good way of putting it?
Yeah, I'd say that's a good way of putting it. And just to put another example on top of that, Andrew Carnegie was the first billionaire recorded in history, and one of his mentees, Napoleon Hill, told Andrew Carnegie that I'm going to meet you at the grandstand. I'm not only going to meet you there, but I'm going to pass you. And what he meant by that was, I'm going to create more millionaires than you create. And I can't remember the exact number, but Carnegie said maybe 1,000 or so, and Napoleon Hill's with Think and Grow Rich created hundreds of millionaires,
Yeah,
hundreds of thousands. Excuse me, hundreds of thousands.
I was going to say, I dare to say that there's probably not a millionaire who's made their money. Meaning, forget about daddy's money and mommy's money and all that other stuff, but a millionaire who's got and made their money. I dare to say there probably isn't one that hasn't, I know there can't be one that hasn't heard of Napoleon Hill, at least in the United States anyway. And I dare to say there probably isn't many, if any, that have actually not read Think and Grow Rich at least once along their path. So
Yeah, but kind of going back to it, Andrew Carnegie told him, "Don't say that. Don't say that you're gonna pass me or meet me at the grandstand and pass me." What he meant by that was he didn't say don't say that. He didn't say, "Hey, you don't one up me." He told him, when you say it like you mean it, because Carnegie was whispering it, and he said, "Say it like you mean it." An affirmation. He said it every single day, and the louder he got, the more the more belief it started becoming, and it happened.
yeah, amazing. So in this piece of expert showcase for today, we're in our experts focus segment. We've been talking about a book and how that changed Horace's life and how it can change your life. And the interesting thing, Horace, is um, we've got the 3 keys to success down, and I've heard listen to your whisper, say yes and figure out how, and then seek counsel and not opinion. So let's, I guess, get to the punchline. A book changed your life, and how can a book? It's funny. I was just about to wrap this up, and I'm looking at it, going, "Well, we might want to get to a punchline on the book, and maybe tell people what they really came for." So, now that we've listened to our whisper, we've said yes and figured out how, and we're seeking counsel, not opinion. How does that correlate to a book, and how did a book change your life, and how can it change other people's lives?
Yeah, so I'll just go into how it changed my life really fast for about 10 or 15 seconds. So I was literally nobody. I didn't have a name. I didn't have any PR. I couldn't get any speaking time. And then after I wrote my book, I became a national award-winning entrepreneur at CEO, which is an event ranked by Forbes. I got articles released on me. I got in College Startup. I got in my school's media. I'm at Changing Lanes by Lane Etheridge's event here. I'm speaking on a stage about our next collaborative book. My life has done this complete, is it 180 or 360? I don't know. My head is spinning still so fast, but yeah, no, it's just gone a complete, U-turn. It's just crazy how it happened. And a book is the fastest way to become credible. It really is, because when someone says, "Hey, how do why should I trust you?" Well, hey, here's my book. Or if it becomes a bestseller, hey, here's my best-selling book. And the cool thing is now on my team I have people who have written biographies for people who, like the CEO of Coca-Cola, for Robert Steele, who played for the Dallas Cowboys. I'm a counterintelligence officer who's been writing for about 35 years for the counterintel. And these people know how to make bestsellers. So,
Folks, notice how he gave you the first 2 names and then very quietly said, "I am a counterintelligence officer." Notice how there wasn't a name. I'm just kind of having a little fun. Notice how there wasn't a name. It's kind of like, here's my secret friend. It's kind of like when you're a ghostwriter for somebody like a John Maxwell or something like that. It's like John's written a lot of books, and there's a lot of people who don't know he's got a ghostwriter that takes him and puts everything he's done and said and all his thoughts and make sure they still sound like him. I know that's kind of odd and bizarre, but let's face it, all big authors use some sort of, whether it's editor or ghostwriter or something like that. So, but anyway, I don't know why I digress other than we're talking about a book. So the interesting thing here is I gotta ask you a question. This is coming from the negative standpoint, and I do realize I'm glad I'm doing this interview with you because I realize something that a mentor of mine once told me is so true. And even though I'm going to do it now, That's given me a pause to change and think about things a little differently. You don't want to foster and let the negative grow. But I'm still going to ask you real quick about the negative here. Um,
Please.
when you have somebody who's written a book or 2 books or 3 books or 4 books, and
Mhm.
it hasn't changed their life. So in other words, somebody might be watching this going, this is just another one of those, you got to write a book to be successful, and I've written 3 books already and I'm not successful.
Sure.
What would you say to somebody like that?
Okay. Absolutely. I mean, it all depends on how they approach it. If they approach it thinking this book is going to change their life, it's going to change their life. Also, I can write a book tomorrow, put it on Amazon, I can put it in over 35 countries, and never use it at all. It'll sit there forever. And I get to say, that book didn't do anything for me. I marketed that book a lot. Writing a book is not going to open a door for you. Writing a book is a leveraging tool on that phone call, or when you're sending an email to an assistant. You can use that. You can have author in that bottom signature. You still have to work. At the end of the day, Chris, I know you know exactly what I mean. You still have to work. You have to leverage that book. If it's not working, you're not leveraging. If it's not working, you're not working. Just simply writing a book, and we can do it for you, but just simply writing a book is not going to change your life. I'm being completely honest here. You have to work, and then that book will open up more doors, but you have to work for it. It won't just happen automatically.
Yeah, and that's the key. And we'll throw all the cards on the table. You and I both know there are a lot of book writing programs out there. There are
Sure.
a lot of co-author with me and do all this other stuff. And the challenge
Yeah.
with most of them, they promote it as, and this is where I swear I know this episode is going to get lambasted by everybody in our industry, but let's face it, I'm going to
Yeah.
finally
Of
I'm
course.
going to air a dirty secret. Fact of the matter is,
Mhm.
folks, if you're listening to all the people telling them that the book itself, only doing that is going to make you a millionaire, and that just because you join a co-author in this area, things are going to skyrocket. If you believe that, that's great, and they'll be happy to take your money. Fact of the matter is just as Horace said, if you don't also work and do other things behind it,
Chris,
you're not going to do anything, right?
Chris, can I give out a big dirty secret that no one might know about?
Sure.
If you want to write a book and you don't want anyone to do it with you or for you, go to createspace.com, go to lulu.com. It's a self-publishing company. You do it all on your own. I'm not here to take anyone's money. Um, I just have a team that can do it for you and show you how to market the book. But the thing is, the reason I really developed mine was when I was writing my book, Chris, just like you mentioned, there's so many out there. Oh, you'll write a book with 12 other people, it'll become a bestseller, and we need $15,000 to do it. Oh, okay, cool. What do I get for the 15,000? You get 2 paragraphs. Awesome, thanks. If you go through traditional publishing, it can cost a lot more. It's a bigger hassle. So I literally just developed a program on all the things I didn't like on everyone else's program. Like when I'm done writing the book with you or for you and my ghostwriter is done, our names aren't on the book. We don't own any IP. We don't own any royalties. It is literally yours.
Yeah, and
Why did I like that? Because no one offered it to me.
right, and that's the key, and it's kind of what I was pointing out. One of the things I was trying to point out is the fact that with a lot of the book writing programs, a lot of the other book writing programs out there, there's a lot of fine print, but there's also a lot of promise that you know. And it's, let's face it, when you're starting off and you feel you need that validation, it is something that people, when you're starting off and you feel you need that validation, it's something that people are willing to pay for. They feel that book is going to change everything. The challenge is that and here's what I would say. If you want to write a book with somebody and you choose Horace or you choose anybody to write a book with, choose somebody who's going to, and I'd say, explore Horace's opportunity first. But if you find somebody who tells you you're not going to have to do any work and you're going to be a #1 bestseller and and the money's just going to roll in, at least be scared. It might be true. It might be somebody very popular, and they might have the pull to be able to do it, but be very
Hmm.
careful because in the end, it still requires work. It still requires, you can do guerrilla marketing, you can do a whole lot of stuff, but it requires work. When I got my book to Amazon bestseller status, I mean, I had to go out and pump it, and I had to say, look, people, here it is. Go out and read it. It's like there are it's something that, we get off on a complete tangent at this point. So, um, I really like what you said and the way that it changed your life, and it gave you that authority, and it put you in a position. And not only did it start off by giving you something to be able to say, now it's changed your life because you've been able to create another business by, helping other people do it, right?
Yeah, yeah. 2 years ago, I never, growing up, I would have never said I want to help millions of people write books. That's not really a goal you just make, and it just developed on its own. I was going through exactly what you were saying, Chris. All these people offering me every single thing. You'll make millions of dollars if you just get this book written. And I'm like, okay, well, when I hand it to someone, and they're like, well, that's not your name on the cover. Well, yeah, I wrote a paragraph in there. Oh, okay. That credibility goes down a little, and you paid a lot of money for it. Whereas CreateSpace, or with me, it's a lot less expensive to do all that, and it's just such a game changer. And I didn't think I would have a team for it either. I just figured I would make a little program and I would show people how to do it. And the need is just coming up everywhere, and that's because of so many people offering every single thing to every single body. And you should be cautious.
Yeah.
I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, exactly. And to take a real quick digression, I mean, you're building your name, Horace, and you're
Yeah.
definitely an up and coming. I'll say up and coming because when you compare it to like a Brian Tracy, or even a Jack Canfield or somebody like that wanting to co-author a book, let's face it, for another couple of years anyway, might only be 6 months, but there's a little bit of a difference. You're a great guy, but
Yeah.
it's just like if somebody wants Tony Robbins or wants me, I mean, they're gonna go to Tony first if they can afford it.
Yeah.
And yeah. So, but
Yeah. And I
but
mean, that's great if you can. Just know exactly what you're getting is all I'll leave it at.
that
And with me, the thing is, when you write a book with Brian Tracy, which Nick does, and it's a great program, and I wouldn't be skeptical of his at all. It's a great program. Nick's a great guy. They're a great company. I have nothing bad to say. I've researched them a lot. I talked to every one of them. It's a great company. So if you want to co-author a book with Brian Tracy, I would say contact info at DN. I think what is it? DN Celebrity or Celebrity Agency.com.
yeah, something
Um,
like that. Yeah.
yeah, or you can just send me and Chris an email and we'll get you connected. But my point is, that's great if you can afford that. But those are typically for people that have done something significant up to that point. Because co-authoring with them is pretty expensive. With me, I have 3 different programs that literally anyone can use it. So if you are in high school, because I was in high school, I had 4 businesses, not all at once, and they didn't last very long, but the credibility was just so hard. And I didn't really have a way to get over that credibility, so I developed a program for high schoolers, for college kids, and I do have programs for more established people that are pretty successful so far. So I just have 3 different programs where one is just a PDF file of exactly, it lists out exactly what you should do, step by step. It's a checklist, exactly where to go, what to do, and how to market everything. And you'll become a millionaire in 24 hours. I'm just kidding.
24. Geez, I thought it was 12. Did it go up to 24?
Yeah, we changed it. And then the next one where we have where you just work with one of our coaches, and we then walk you over the phone. If you need someone to walk you through it, we walk you over the phone of how to do it. The cool thing is, what I do is, if you sign up for the PDF little checklist, and by little, it's not little, it's pretty lengthy, but if you sign up for the checklist and you decide you need the coaching program, I use whatever you invested in that to go into the other program, so you don't have to repay. Because my whole thing is I'm wanting to create 10,000 authors by the year 2020.
Awesome.
And then my last
Yeah. Go ahead.
my last program, I just want to say, is where we do it all for you. I have a graphic designer design the cover, a ghostwriter write it for you. You get me as a coach, and then you also get our marketing program after. That's kind of like our big program for everything.
So really, you've got a do-it-yourself, a done with you, and a done for you version of the program. That's what it boils down to.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that's so great. And see, folks, the reason why, if you're even considering being an author, you should check out Horace's program. Is one of the reasons is because of those 3 levels. Because you might you might know that you want to be an author, but aren't really sure how to go about doing it, and you want to save the time, the effort, and the frustration through, you want to save all the time, effort, and frustration you would have gone through by searching for it yourself. I mean, let's face it, let's make no bones about it. It's funny because in the back of my book, The Secret Blueprint to More, I offered a co-authorship program as well. The fact of it is the stuff that Horace and I do, at least 98% of it, if not 100, you could probably find somewhere out on the internet for the do-it-yourself. But it's going to take you a lot of time. It's going to put you through a lot of frustration, and time is money. And the quicker you get to writing the book, the quicker you can get to being a #1 bestseller, and the quicker you can use it as authority. So whenever you're given the opportunity to invest a small amount of money in something as powerful as Horace's program, at least look at the entry level to get the checklist. I think what you're doing is awesome, Horace, that you're saying, look, if you invest in the entry level and you decide to go up and you need some coaching and everything, we're going to go ahead and put what you put in the entry level, the do-it-yourself level, into that coaching. That's a lot of people don't. In fact, I don't personally know anybody else who's actually doing that. So I commend you for that. That's a great way of doing it and recognizing people's investment.
Yeah, absolutely. And then one thing I did want to mention is, because you did say time is money, our big author program where it's all done for you, if I don't finish it in 90 days, we will refund every single penny.
Wow, that's amazing. And
we'll finish the book.
Wow.
And we will still finish the book.
Now there's a guarantee for you. So by now, you should really be wondering how the heck you can at least explore more. So I guess maybe it'd be a good time for me to punch this little button and put your website address up there. So yeah, it's themindsetexpert.com/book offer. And if you go to that website, it's on the screen. There's a free consultation, and it's, from what I understand from our pre-show prep, it's a free consultation to basically see if you're a good fit for the author and if you guys can work together to create a book. Is that, do I have that right, or did I make another mistake? My mistake tally is about 50 today, so it's okay if it's the other one.
No, you're doing great. No mistakes. But yeah, so on that book offer, themindsetexpert.com/book offer, there's a little video on the left-hand side. It's just our little commercial on exactly what we do, just kind of like a little teaser. And then what we do is, when you sign up, you'll get a quick email, and you just reply. And you reply with 3 dates and times that work for you. And what we do is we just want to make sure we're working with people that are really going to use the book to the best of their advantage, so that they can succeed. Because if at the end of the day, if you're giving us a call and saying, hey, I want to write a book and I want it to sit on the shelf and do nothing, we can do that, certainly, but I'm out there to help people get on more stages, to speak more. I want their business to go up more, and I want their credibility to skyrocket. And I am promising those things because it still requires work, but if I was able to do it at 20 years old, I'm pretty sure the formula works for everybody.
Wow. So folks, what I want you to hear, I want you to really hear and listen to what Horace just said. He's interested in working with people who are actually going to do something with the book and use it for a purpose, not just somebody who wants to write a book and leave it sit and kind of do nothing, or somebody who thinks that just by having a book and just by writing a book and putting it on the shelf is going to, make them the next internet millionaire, or make them famous. And that's what sets Horace apart from a lot of the other book writing programs, because a lot of the other ones, you got a credit card and you're a warm body, we'll take your money because we feel, hey, if you want to pay the money, we're going to go ahead and do it for you. That's fine. And I commend you, Horace, for being, of that minority of people saying, look, we want to make sure you're actually going to do something with this book, and this book is actually going to be beneficial for you. So congratulations on that.
Absolutely. And then one thing that might be going through the audience's mind is, I don't have a story. What is the little old me going to write about? We have a team, like I said. We've written books for the CEO of Coca-Cola, who has a great story, but we've also written books for people who thought they didn't have great stories that turned into bestsellers. So our expert team will actually help you develop your story, and I'm sure there's a story somewhere within everyone. In fact, I know that there is.
Yes, definitely. There is definitely a story within everyone, and sometimes you just need a coach to bring that out, to ask you those right questions, to figure out what that story is, um, and how to get it out to the masses. So excellent. So before we wrap up the experts focus piece of our show, any last words of wisdom on a book and writing a book and how writing a book can change your life?
You pretty much just covered it. Writing the book itself, again, I just want to touch on this point. Writing a book itself is not going to change your life. Once the book is done, it'll open more doors, but you still have to work. Once you have that book done, it'll open more doors, it'll get more meetings, it'll get more phone calls, but you're still the one who has to send those emails and pick up the phone to do that initial phone call. And then when someone says, hey, why should I listen to you? Here's my book. And when you're able to do that, people tend to perceive you differently. They perceive you as an expert versus here's just another coach who does this. Here's another finance person who does this. What we also do, we tailor one that I learned from Nick, is we work with them to do a shock and awe package. And this is their work that I caught on one of their webinars, but the shock and awe package just basically you send to your high-end clients, and it contains a book and then a lot of other material that you can work with them on, but it does contain a book. And what better way to impress someone than to send them a big portfolio of stuff that you're in magazines, that you're in, radio shows, and then here's a physical copy of your book signed to whoever person.
Yeah, I'm cracking a smile because I was going to say, other than Nick, you must be a little familiar with Dan Kennedy and the
Yeah.
whole Glacier Kennedy insider circle. So, you know, once again, man, really small world. I happen to know Charlie McDermott, who was GKIC Marketer of the Year. I think it was like 2011 or 2012, something like that. And Jeff Gian, I forget how he's got this really great Italian last name that I can't pronounce. I think he and Dan did a book together, and
Yeah.
he sells $30,000 mattresses right outside of Lancaster, Pennsylvania. In addition to being a great marketer,
Yeah.
so yeah, really small world.
No kidding. But that just goes to prove another point that we said in the beginning. Once you start hanging around certain groups of people, every like-minded person will just come together, like me and you are.
Yep.
It just happens. That's the way it works.
Exactly. So far we've talked about Horace's hero's journey. If you didn't watch that, you can see it in part 1. And in this segment, Experts Focus of Expert Showcase, we focused on really the importance of writing a book and how it can, if used right, change your life. We're going to take a real quick break. While we do, head over to mindsetexpert.com/book offer. And start the process of getting involved with Horace and making sure that a book is right for you. And then we'll be right back with a little more information on how Horace has developed visibility, credibility, authority, how he's gotten found and gotten known out there, and really started to set himself apart. So hang with us and we'll be right back. And we're back. The theme of today is A Book Changed Everything. We're talking with excuse me, the cough and the frog in my throat. We're talking with Horace. The over-under still at 1. Those of you who don't know what that is, go back to episode 1. We've spent about an hour today. So for those of you who are just joining us, yeah, each segment's 30 minutes. It's worth it. It's 30 minutes every day. Put it on it'll be on YouTube. Listen to it in the background. Do something. You got to do something to change your life. It's definitely going to be worthwhile listening and watching. This segment might be a little bit shorter. I don't know yet, though. But because Horace, you've got that pool to get to out back, and you've given so much of your time already. But I couldn't let you go without talking to you about visibility, credibility, authority, and and video and other content marketing efforts.
Absolutely.
So tell us a little bit about what you're doing and how you've gone about establishing visibility, credibility, and eventually authority.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said before the book, I was honestly, I couldn't get any speaking engagements. I couldn't do anything. Once I got that book written, I got on stages, and I became an authority through that book. I make it sound easy, but it was a lot of long nights. It was a lot of hard work. I was still working a lot on myself and PR and getting into newspapers and articles, getting into my college press. And one big thing that I'm doing now, which I highly recommend everyone to do, it's not quite finished yet, but I'm creating a sizzle reel. Chris, are you aware of them? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm creating a little sizzle reel for before I go on speaking engagements. I put on a little sizzle that kind of shows people who I am and what I've done in about 2 to 3 minutes. That way, you start off your talk with a standing ovation, and then you just start off more confident. So that's one thing I'm doing now that I recommend everyone to do, because it does make a big difference. And I noticed that from Nick Nain, of course, and his sizzle reel is absolutely amazing. And it's like he said, it gets you a standing ovation before you start your talk. Just putting your name in Google, just watching yourself grow. The more you go on, the more interviews you do, the more blog posts you put up, the more content you give. You have to always give content. If you're not trying to help someone else, with content, I can have the first 10 pages of Google all locked up and talk about nothing but, I don't know, a Lenovo laptop, right? And that might be content for a Lenovo person, but for everyone else, they're like, cool, that's not really what I wanted. So you have to be providing content constantly, as well as
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
I was just going to say, as well as through social media, I do a lot of content through there, both on my personal and private and public page. And I just put a lot of content out. I try to just give content. One of, I don't know him personally, but Gary Vaynerchuk, or Chuck, I think it is, he has a book called Jab, 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 Right Hook, where, if you haven't read the book, it's just jabbing means you're giving content. You're expecting nothing back. And that's that's a lot of my time is just jabbing. I'm just jabbing out there, giving as much help and content as I can for everyone. So that's one way to really get your name out there. When you start focusing on giving content, people will start noticing and they'll want you on their shows.
Yeah, exactly. And then for those of you who don't know, the right hook comes as the ask. I mean, it ends up boiling down to you've given enough great free content that people got a chance to know, like, and trust you, and you've helped them and you've changed their life. And then you go in for the ask, and they're more open and ready to actually partner with you, to actually hire you to actually be a part of your network and everything. And I love the fact that you bring up the sizzle reel, which for those of you who aren't public speakers, one of the things you want to really understand about still needing a sizzle reel, it is a video you can send to a prospective client. It's a video you can put on the internet to make sure that your prospective client sees it before they even contact you. It's a great way of allowing a prospective client to self-select, and it gets you more clients because they start to understand and they put you and what you do in context. We had another guest on Expert Showcase who brought that up and said that their videos really help them be in context for a client. So it's not just words on a paper. It's a client can see how you're going to work with them or how you're going to talk, what you look like. And let's face it, I'll say, I'll use me as an example. I mean,
Yeah.
look, I'm still living in the 2000s, but I live like a 60s hippie, and that's okay. People who resonate with this look, it's all good. That's why it was interesting. One of the hosts we've had on here before, Dr. Mark Kosman, helped me create VideoContent.Agency. Bald-headed guy, always suit and tie, and very, he's a clinical psychologist by trade before he became an internet marketer. Definitely a different look, definitely a different level of resonance with, definitely a different level of resonance with people. But as long as, and the good thing is, as long as the look and what you do in your sizzle reel matches you, and as long as everything is congruent, then you're all good. In fact, it's one of the reasons why very shortly my whole look is going to change. And this button-down shirt is, I love suits, but man, the button-down shirt's going. And I'm going to get some rockin' tees and that sort of thing because it's just much more of a. So anyway, enough about all that. But
one quick thing I did want to mention to just give the audience some content here. Video Hive I think, let me check. It's a videohive.net. Yeah, videohive.net. They can get you started on a sizzle reel. And then if you have just a standard smartphone, you can do it all on your own.
Yeah, exactly. And the good news is if you like what you're seeing on Expert Showcase, this is one of the companies I own, does video content for people and creates sizzle reels and other pieces of content marketing. So as you progress up through the phone and through Video Hive, once you want to do some branded stuff and some other things that require more cameras and everything else and all the fun that we have, like we have here on Expert Showcase, you can reach out to us and we'll see if we're a good fit to work together. So,
Yeah,
in
absolutely.
fact, it's one
And
of
I
the
would say
reasons. Go
that's a
ahead.
huge thing. Having a
Thank
video reel.
Yeah, yeah. The more videos you have, the more Google loves videos. So,
Yeah,
without babbling anymore, because I really feel like I'm babbling at this point. I mean, I love to talk, but I don't want to bore people. If there was one piece of advice you'd give people about, either content marketing or building visibility, credibility, and authority, other than writing a book, because we know writing a
sure.
book, so that is your platform. I'd say, yep, writing a book, great way to build visibility, credibility, and since authority comes from the root
Yeah,
author, which means to write the book, that is the number one way. But other than writing a book, um, what's one piece of advice you'd give to anybody watching who's looking to build
sure.
visibility, credibility, and authority?
Let me actually do two or three. So one thing I would do is actually, if you can't get on any articles and you can't get any media, helpareporter.com. Chris, I'm sure you're aware of them. Hero.
Yep.
You can get on there. That you do have to be content heavy, but they'll actually start doing that for you, and then you can say as seen on blank. So that's one way to start if you don't really have a name and you're trying to get one out there. It's help a reporter, hero.com, I believe. I can't remember exactly what it is, but it's a help a reporter.
Yep.
Um, the second thing you can do if no one wants to make anything is you create your own media. What if I wanted to do the Mindset magazine, right? And I just did my own content and media, and then I just had a whole magazine devoted to either mindset or if I wanted to do I don't know, Horace's Fantastic Fridays, and that's a magazine. Or I know Greg Rollett from who's Nick's partner does a celebrity. He does a backstage pass. That's his thing. So you can also do that. You can name it whatever you want. But the backstage pass that he sends, and I get it every month. That's his media. He provides all the content. Then he finds people to come on his. And now that he's put such a name, people pay him to be on his media. So that's another thing you can do. The last thing is just start going on YouTube. Making small little videos. Start blogging. One thing I do want to say that's actually looks like it's a newer trend. As you're building a name, is replying on Twitter with video. Just taking a couple extra seconds instead of writing a comment, make a video to a fan, a customer, reply with videos. That seems like it's a new trend. It takes an extra 2 or 3 seconds, and don't you feel more special if you get a little comment saying, at Chris, thanks, versus a video, Chris, hey, thank you so much for your share. I really appreciate it. Hope we get in touch soon. And that takes a whole 2 more seconds, and that person just feels so much more special. So Hero, helpareporter.com, creating your own media, and just getting on YouTube is another way you can build it.
Yeah, that's awesome, and I love your fourth point about responding in Twitter
Yeah,
via a video. And here's what people have to realize: is that while you're getting inundated all day long with your Twitter feed and everything else, you don't have to respond to everybody. you
yeah,
you have to build a tribe that you interact with on a regular basis. So rather than thanking everybody, rather than taking all the time to respond to the thousands and thousands of people that are interacting with you and everything, once you start narrowing it down, if it takes you 30 seconds to create a video and 5 seconds to respond normally, then eliminate 6 people from the number of people you respond to. It's that simple.
yeah,
I mean, because you don't have to respond to everybody. You want to build your core tribe following whether it be to get business, to give business, or just to grow as a just to grow in your business, or just as a just having friends. So awesome advice, Horace. For those of you counting, it's one. So the unders, you win the bet. Um, Unless I screw up here in the last minute and a half. So today on Expert Showcase, we would talk with Haris Reis. He's been an awesome guest. We've had another epic episode. We talked about how a book can change everything. Part one was about Horace's hero's journey. And you listen all about him seeing things and taking action. Realize that one of the things you have to do today is take action. The second piece in Expert Showcase, we went through how a book changed everything, how it changed everything for Horace, and how if you do things like listening to your whisper, taking action, saying yes, and figuring out, say yes and then figure out how you're going to do it, and do all the other things that Horace talks about, you'll be able to start succeeding and realizing that a book isn't going to change everything if you just put it on the shelf and let it collect dust, that you need to work at it. That's all in part two. And here in part three, we went over how Horace is developing visibility, credibility, authority, and really doing a lot with content marketing, what he's doing, what he suggests doing with content marketing. So Horace, before I give the final wrap up and my final words, do you have any last thoughts?
Yeah, one thing I want to say is just do it. Don't focus on making it perfect. Just get out there and start working. It'll all work out in the end.
Awesome. Well, once again, thank you very much, Horace, for being on. For those of you coaches watching the show, if you're a coach and you're watching this right now, and let me guess, if you're watching this, you have to be. So we got half of it right. You're watching this, so if you're a coach, I'll get this right yet. And you'd like to be on Expert Showcase, head on over to expertshowcase.com, click the apply button, send us your information. We'll review it. If we feel you're a good fit for the show, we'll get you all set up on a booking date and get you on. If you're a coach who realizes that the power of branded video is what's going to set you apart from your competition, head over to VideoContent.Agency, take a look around, see what we're all about, see if you feel we're a good fit for you, then get in contact with us, let us talk, see if we're a good fit for each other, and if we're a good fit to create an internet talk show around you with either you as the host or you as the co-host. So until next time, everybody watching, thank you very much and make it a great day.